Hello, and welcome back to the Bitcoin review. No, just kidding. Today we're going to chat about censorship and the pros and the cons of it. I know it sounds like there's only cons, but it's not that simple. So we have Mr. Will from Damos.
Hello.
Miljan from Primal.
How's it going, guys?
Are we going to have Vitor from Amethyst in video or something, or no? Oh, you're looking for him? Okay.
If not, just get someone else.
Yeah. I'm sure we can pick one more client from the crowd.
Just kidnap somebody and bring them over.
Yeah, Marty's here.
Yeah.
We need more people.
Kieran or Marty?
Kieran, are you around? Nope. Okay.
Yeah, get Marty. So we got robbed by Vitor.
Yeah, Vitor was going to video link in
I see, okay.
and be behind us like Fiat did. Why don't we get started and
Sure.
they can always join us midway. There is enough on this topic. So, first, why don't we start with just sort of like your general view on where do you think censorship is useful versus is just a horrible thing? Unfortunately, like we don't have a better word for filtering, and censorship is a kind of filtering. So how do you go about that, Will?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I give some background into what even made me start working on Damus, because the main reason was seeing all the censorship on all these platforms, right? Seeing these centralized institutions having so much power over people that they can easily just completely erase them from the internet. They build their following. They build this huge social graph, and they spend a lot of time online. And then at a flip of a switch, they can just erase them and all that data. And I realized that's just it's not good. It's horrible. So I first looked at Mastodon as a potential solution to this problem, and I realized it was worse. The censorship resistance was like people were getting banned left and right. It's easy for your account to get erased. So I guess I'm not really answering your question, but this is.
I mean, we all know Mastodon sucks. I mean, like I ran an instance, and I was the benevolent dictator on that, and I had to cancel some people.
And I'm like, oh shit, should I talk bad about Cold Card? Because I'm like, am I gonna get banned? So it's like you have to think about those things. It's like the self-censorship, especially when you have someone running the instance. So I felt like Nostr was the first time where we have a solution where it's harder for people to be censored. So yeah, I don't know if didn't answer your question.
Yeah, that's the beginning. Mr. Miljan?
Well, I will echo Will's words here. I think the main reason why many of us are developing on Nostr is to avoid censorship and to go around it. Probably the protocol might not even be here if we didn't experience so much censorship out there in the recent years. And certainly it wouldn't get the level of passion that it's getting both from developers like Will and myself and many others here, as well as the users. Like this early stage of Nostr where we have like a fairly small user base but very passionate user base, I think is a product of what actually happened in the last few years. It was a wake-up call for many of us to just to see how things work currently, and then we definitely need an alternative. And the whole notion that there is a handful of companies, maybe one company that owns the kind of global town square, is just insane.
Yeah, and I find it interesting because this is why we started our clients. But in some sense, it's becoming just like everyone's just used to it. And it's expected, and now we're more focused on client features, and it's becoming like an invisible thing, and it's kind of just accepted, which is interesting.
So I think the counter argument to like our so like we're all fairly self-selecting, free speech absolutists and all this stuff. So But the counter argument to that is that, like, there's this great quote that I can't remember who said it, but it's essentially like, people don't want freedom, people want a better cell. Right? Freedom is a scary thing. There's a lot of responsibility, and there's other issues with that too, right? So, a lot of people, at least in my view, like Twitter or like Facebook or whatever, because they can have a sort of like a safe, cozy space, where they can dunk on the opposing view, but they don't need to interact with the opposing view when they don't want to, because they can just block and they can do whatever they want, right? So, one is like, how can we provide people also freedom to censor what they don't want to see in a way where it doesn't feel like there is some marionette, sort of like benevolent dictator on the platform?
Yeah, this is like the root of everything, which is, how much should clients be censoring, aka like some people call it moderation, but as a client, you have a huge responsibility when you make that decision, because now you're making a moderation decision on behalf of everyone using your client. And yeah, it might remove some spam, but it actually might also remove some legit stuff. In some cases, like, with I think the Iris client originally had this web of trust model, which is like a really cool way of finding spam. You only see messages from within your friend group, which is just fine, but it's a moderation decision in the sense that you're going to be missing lots of messages. Those people are effectively shadow banned, right? And they might not necessarily be spam. So I feel like as client authors, we have huge responsibility and when we're making these decisions, we need to be very transparent about them, because like it's really a really crappy experience when they're like, wow, I'm actually missing messages that I'm expecting because they're making some moderation decision on my behalf. So
yeah, I mean, it's very easy for things to get lost. What's your approach to handling some of these questions?
So when the clients shouldn't be censoring, period. Clients shouldn't be in the business of censoring. They should be in the business of offering tools to people that people can choose to use or not. So when we all started kind of holding our keys to our online speech with Nostr, I think that's the kind of the magical moment where the balance of power shifted forever. And we're just in the early stages of that. And we as client developers probably, we can make a bunch of decisions about how we're going to run our clients. It gets even more complicated when we're not only dealing with client apps, but for those companies or organizations that also run services. That's like the next kind of level of complexity. Anyone who is running a service is introduced. By service, I mean things like an indexing service that offers full text search of the Nostr network, or the media hosting service, or the caching service for acceleration services, those types of things. They are all of those. Running those types of services introduces some centralizing factors to the network, definitely, and people running those services need to, of course, be aware of that. And in my view, the correct way to handle this on Nostr is to make it easy
cancel your key pair, but they can prevent your key pair from participating in their system. We just say that the relays is also their right to not have your stuff, right? Like they may choose not to host your data. But I guess the value here is that you have alternatives and you can go elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, relay should be banning as many people as they want, because like it's in the design of the system where relays can make those decisions. So it's not a big of a deal when the relays do it, but it's when the clients do it, because clients are naturally centralizing things within Nostr, because a lot of people use like the one client, like a lot of people use Damus, right? So I feel like I have a lot of responsibility to make sure at the base layer that there's no censorship happening. And a thing that actually happened recently when I was designing a new feature, it made me realize I'm like, I don't even know if I should turn this on by default. So I added this feature where you can filter NSFW tags, hashtags, on your following hashtags and things like that. And I realized that if I were to turn this on by default, which might be like a reasonable default, then that would be the first time where I'm actually like making a moderation decision on behalf of someone. And a lot of people don't go into settings to like turn it off. They might not even know the settings there. So I was like, I don't even know, like, so I eventually made the decision to not enable it by default. But now it's like, you have a first-time user who like is scrolling the hashtags and all, they're getting porn in their feed. So it's one of those really, as a client author, I'm like, I don't know what the right thing to do there is, because I don't want,
Yeah, how do you guys feel about algorithm, like feed algos, right? Because that's where it gets dicey, right? I mean, the whole point of the feed algos is for you to filter and rate and and change the way that the content is presented. But as we now know, like how Google is, and people, it becomes the internet for people. It becomes the only thing they see. So how are you guys see it approaching sort of like now that's still small, and how do you see this evolving? And like, how do you handle the algo choices and algo transparency and all that stuff?
I think that algos will be, I don't want to say absolutely necessary to use Nostr at a certain point after we get to a very large amount of content, not like a lot of users, maybe even AI-generated content and stuff like that. But in my view, they should always be deliberately selected by the user. So let's say if you're probably the correct choice, at least for Primal currently, is that the default feed doesn't have any algorithmic interventions. The default feed is just the chronological feed of your follows. And then we already have, the trending feed, which is our opinion of what's relevant at any given point. So that's when things get interesting. And we notice that people seem to care a lot about what trends on Primal.
But we'll get to Dums on that one too. But I guess like my only pushback on that is, if the goal is to sort of onboard new users, right? We can't just like dump like the main feed on them, right? We have to do some kind of activity feed, sort of like.
There's going to be a bunch of different feeds, and hopefully offered by a bunch of different players. And the user should be able to select through the curated list of feeds. We're kind of starting to work on that at Primal, where things are a little bit more interesting than just like chronological feed of your follows versus maybe what Primal thinks it's relevant in terms of the trending stuff. We're starting to come up with different algos for a bunch of different scenarios, which we think are going to be interesting. But what's important is that every algo is open sourced, so that it's perfectly transparent how we're coming up with this. And if there are any filter lists, those lists should also be transparent, and also, if not opt in, but at least like opt out. So the user should have the ability to select the types of algos that they want to see in their feeds or not.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think I'm like anti-algo because I'm like a chronological feed maxi, but it's not really true. My issue is like I'm against one algo, like the default algo. Like you open TikTok and it's just like you scroll mindlessly. I think that is causing lots of negative effects on society and humanity. So, but I think Nostr is uniquely set up right now to do it much better, which is I think next year is going to be the year of algos on Nostr in terms of just. Damus will eventually have lists and different types of algos. We're starting to see the trending feed and stuff in Primal. I think even Snort, when I open up Snort, there's like a default trending algo now.
Yeah, I think it's coming from Nostr band, but I'm not sure.
So it's like we're set up perfectly to start exploring this space, and Nostr uniquely is going to do it really well, just because we have different clients trying different things. There's going to be different algo feeds, so I'm really excited for next year in terms of what we do with Algos.
So that's actually an interesting point, which is when it comes to content discovery. The notion of offering a content discovery feature again introduces some centralizing factors into the story, right? So if you're a Nostr client, let's take search. Search is a very good example because everybody agrees that search is useful, right? Whereas some people might disagree that trending feeds are useful. So that's fine. So if you're a Nostr client, and when it comes to search, you have basically three options. You can not offer global search. You can say running indexers introduces centralizing effects to the network. I don't want to do that, and make a principled choice to not offer this feature. I respect that. Second choice is to stand up your own indexer and offer the feature, and the third choice is to use someone else's indexer. So
I mean,
there's
the
one
data.
more.
I mean, we have
one?
this massive liquidity pool of data, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
if you're well connected to relays, right, as a user, you could almost say like you have this like universe, right, of like almost everything that's on Nostr would be available to you except for the stuff that doesn't want to be seen, right? So like private relays or things like that. So, the data is there. It is up to, I guess, the user to pick a client that will sort of shape the data in a way that they want to have.
I'm curious to get your take, Will, on the fourth option.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been thinking about this a lot. The way that I'm starting to view, at least Damus, at least my client with NostraDB and things like that, is, I really want these features to be in clients. So this is why I've been kind of building this database from. And so my view is like, you have your node is like, or your client is like, has a certain view of the network. Yeah, it's not a global view, so we don't have global search, but I think you can still get pretty far with just like your view of the network search locally on your device. So I think that's going to open up a lot of cool. Anyway, I
agree.
That's another.
And that's actually a good take, and can't wait to try that feature.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
What about marketplaces for feed algos and for filters and things like that? Is this like something that's on your radars? Is this something you guys are developing now? Because I would love to have like, here's a bunch of cool things that you could have, like maybe shows marquettes, maybe, like, I don't know, like.
Yeah. So actually, Primo was the main motivation for creating Nostrasia, because I noticed their relay had custom like non-spec things you're sending back and forth over the WebSocket. Well, I was like, how could I tap into that in Damus? If someone wanted to write like a plugin, you can plug in.
I think we chatted a little bit, like a DM or two. Yeah.
Yeah. Even though it's not a stable interface, but it was still cool. Like, hey, imagine if you could write a small Nostr script that talked to the Primal relay using their language, and then you could just simply broadcast that plugin as like a note to the network. And so the marketplace would just simply, you just fetch down all these plugin notes, which are just like, they could even be embedded in the note. The actual script could be embedded in the note. And then you can just install it into Damus, and then now you have a primal training feed in Damus. So I wanted to make it so, like, I don't have to hard code your relays into Damus. So I think I'm really excited to start doing more with Nostr. It's pretty powerful. I'm not really doing anything with it yet, but except for unlocking Zaps.
Yeah, I know you guys are working more on the social.
Sorry, to answer your question. Yes, we are excited about the idea of marketplace for feeds, and we're excited about it from both directions. The idea of creating our own feeds that are going to be available in other clients, as well as, of course, making other non-primal feeds available in primal clients. I think it's going to be massive. And it's one of those examples where it lifts the whole ecosystem. We can kind of help each other out that way.
I think that these things get very like interesting and dangerous, right? As we move just past only social stuff, right? Because you're going to have marketplaces, you're going to have the DVMs, you're going to have it could be blog posts, it could be whatever. So imagine when news organizations are posting their long form articles, like the New York Times of such. and you're going to have clients that maybe have state sanctions on them, right? So I don't know, like dumbest China might not be willing to show what some newspaper that is against the current regime in some other country, in that country.
We'll learn exactly how censorship resistant we are.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the day when it's like, some government is going to come to me and say, you have to ban this PubKey or this group of terrorist organizations, because it'll be really sad where I'm going to have to. I mean, it's definitely possible where I have to hard code censorship. I just don't think it's that effective though, because you could just create new keys so easily.
I mean, Pablo is already censoring BRB.io. He blocked, from NDK. But
as of a couple of days ago, we did too.
There you go. Okay, so nobody's handling errors.
No, we've just been handling them for so long. We don't need to handle them anymore.
So, like, how do we incentivize, create incentives where, like state actors sort of kind of give up, right? Because, it's whack-a-mole. Anyone can see the same content elsewhere, right? Like, that is not true for Twitter, Facebook, right? Yeah. Like, the content that is there, it's stuck in there, right? With Nostr, maybe on the App Store in China is not available, but they can go see that on the web, right?
Yeah, I think there's not many central places, and this is the whole point of building a decentralized network, is there's no pressure points where they can go to and be effective. Like even China or the CCP, they banned a lot of the bootstrap relays within Damus, but then I just updated it so that you can change the bootstrap relays. And so the next time you go, so it's going to be like this cat and mouse game of if they want to try to do it, but it's going to be very hard for governments to censor Nostr.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely try if we are successful, or when Nostr takes off in a major way in terms of users and usage, we will get pressured. If we're successful, we will get pressured, and the only way to kind of deal with that is to have as many apps and as many different form factors and platforms running as many different possible sets of trade-offs, as many relays, as many caching services and indexing services, all of them based on open source software. Now that's hard to stop.
Yeah, it's like there's a reason why email isn't censored. I mean, actually, yeah.
Email is complicated.
It's complicated, but
but it's pretty free. I mean,
yeah.
It's very hard to really truly cut it off. It gets tricky.
Yeah, I mean, it got a little bit centralized, but for the most part, I run my own email server and it works. I'm kind of in my own little independent node. I wouldn't recommend running an email server because it's a pain in the ass. But yeah, I mean, once you build on a protocol, it becomes exponentially harder for them to shut. There's no central place to shut it down. So.
Very cool. So, just sort of looking forward, right? What things do you guys want to see built that could help clients and relays and indexers sort of coordinate around these things?
I mean, so there's one big risk, at least especially with the model that Damus adopts, which is this relay pool model. So this is the dumber and simpler versions of the Gossip model. So there is a risk that's where there could be very few relays, and it might just take one government to say, oh, these are now illegal, and so all of a sudden you have nowhere to connect to. So I think the Gossip model is something I really want to get into next year in Damus, just to have more censorship resistance. Then basically you could run your own relay, and Damus would know to read and write to those relays for each user, and that would help a lot for decentralization and censorship resistance. So I definitely at least want to have it as an option you can turn on. But there's many different ways to fetch nodes from. But I think the Gossip model is something I want to do more.
Exactly the same answer here. So we'll also implement the Gossip model probably after the version 1.0 is out. So this is more kind of primal 2.0. This has been part of our vision from the beginning. So when we launched Primal back in March, I wrote this blog post that nobody read, where kind of outlined the roadmap, where we're starting with in 4 different steps. We're going to get from this model where we kind of read from our caching service to the model where the ability to work with the caching service is just a competency of the client, but also we're reading from relays directly and specifically implementing Gossip. So, yeah, this is going to be important.
So, the two of you are known actors, right? So you guys are capture points, and how do you see the kind of energy you're going to have to put into having some moderation so you guys don't end up in jail, right? So there is the unsavory pictures, there is the stuff that it's illegal jurisdiction you're in, and we all know that active moderation is an insane job. It's super hard. It's costs a lot of money. You see the guys for Facebook that jump off buildings after doing a day of it.
Yeah. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how effective my theory around this is, but I'm basically positioning Damus as a browser, as a client, like a browser in some sense. So Damus doesn't host any images. We don't even have an image cache or anything. So a lot of the issues that these centralized services what they run into is that they're hosting the images, and so if they need to be taken down, you actually have to go to Twitter and take down that image. Whereas now I just go to the Nostr build guy, can you take that image down? But you could that's the only kind of the centralizing risk is I'm pushing a lot of the liability to people who want to do those things, but for the most part, Damus is just we're just plain text.
So more than just avoiding jail, which is definitely a good thing.
Good goal.
You're not winning if you're in jail.
That's right.
More beyond that, certain types of filtering can be just useful services, as long as they are opt-in and selectable by the user. So we're planning to implement all kinds of filtering algorithms that people can choose to opt in or opt out of as a service to our users. And I think this, as the network grows, this will be more and more useful. And hopefully those types of filters that are fully transparent, again, based on open source software. So everything, by the way, that we do at Primal is open source under the MIT license. Hopefully those filters are good enough to also keep us out of jail.
I actually want to talk about something really quick about images in general. I don't think images should be censorship resistant because you get into these situations where you accidentally post an image and you realize you dox your address or something on a photo, and then you're like, well, you definitely want that to be censored, right? So if you use nip whatever and try to upload that image to 10 different relays, now it's much harder to take down the image. I don't know. So I think it's good that images is censorable in some sense. It's not that's the trade-off that I'm willing to make just for
it's
legal reasons.
None of these are simple black and white issues once you drill into them.
I mean, Nostr doesn't have a native way of hosting binary data, right? So it's already an unsolved problem to begin with, right? Where do the pictures go? Where does the video go?
Wherever you want them to go. Yeah.
That's right. I guess we could.
That's the other stuff. I guess
we can do base 64 and just put them in kind one as text.
But we shouldn't.
Don't do that, please.
You listening hacker out there,
don't do that.
Base 64, all the things. So, I guess who's doing a good job at handling this fine balance in the early days where we don't have all the tools yet, to have not a lot of knowledge yet, but who's doing a good job out there, and what are some examples of things that you wish didn't happen?
I don't know what other people are doing, so I don't know. If they are censoring people, I wouldn't even know. So
it's so early. It's hard to point anything that's being done super well, actually, in any segment of Nostr. It's so early, the whole meme, Nostr's broken, we're assembling the airplane in flight, stuff's broken. For all of you guys out there using our stuff, when you tell us that stuff's broken, yeah, we know, we see it. When, and the bar is set by Twitter. Multi-billion-dollar company that's been at it for 10 years, and people are like, oh, why doesn't Anonymous do this? Well, it's just
and they still haven't figured out. I mean, nobody has, right? Because the problem keeps on changing too, right? Society changes, what's acceptable behavior, what's not, what countries expect off the platforms, the laws change.
But on the flip side, things are improving so rapidly. That I think everyone can agree with, because you just look at where we were, let's say, 6 months ago. Things are moving quite nicely, and I have a good feeling about what's to come actually in the coming months.
Yeah, I mean, this year has been insane, and just seeing all the progress of all the clients, and yeah, exactly what you said, how far we come. It's been amazing, and now look, we're here a year later almost, and we're all in Japan, and we're trying to figure this stuff out. It's amazing to see this much energy and people just trying to solve these hard problems. So yeah, just appreciate everyone that's here and that are on the mission with us. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely on a user bear market now for Nostr, which is perfect. It's the time to build.
Thank God.
Right? Because once the users come, I mean, we saw this last time, right? I mean, you're busy trying to make sure servers don't melt.
Like you notice when like a whole country comes online.
Yes.
I noticed that with like I think it was like Saudi Arabia or something. They came on. There was 1 million messages in like Farsi or something.
That's when BRB became BRB.
Yeah, and then they left because they realized there's no delete.
That's right. I mean, but that's actually a very interesting thing to bring up because people have come to expect a capacity to delete. They don't understand the Streisand effect. They don't understand that on the internet everything is there forever. Because they do remove from the immediate world that they live in, and things kind of go away. So I mean, Germany has laws, the right to be forgotten, right, that are kind of like hilarious because the internet doesn't forget and doesn't forgive. Isn't that anonymous? So I mean, you had the feature, right? I've deleted myself accidentally on Damas.
Well, yeah, it's not a real delete. It just wipes your profile.
Is that just to pass App Store?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it was the dumbest thing I ever implemented. It just like wipes your profile, and then it sets a flag on your profile that says deleted. And then when you try to log in with Damas,
dumps you.
So I actually got rid of that because it was so annoying. It's too confusing for people.
Was Apple okay with that?
They're not checking anymore, probably.
That's right.
Like
they accepted.
You got that check mark first, and then now you're.
Once you're on the App Store, it's okay. Now you can just start to like undo the stuff that you got.
I mean,
on
like
the App Store.
we went through all this right with Apple in the early days of Bitcoin, right? Like Apple said no Bitcoin wallets. I think it was 2014 or so, and everybody started shooting their phones on videos on the internet, and then they kind of like changed course a bit. I guess like eventually the demand is so great that it doesn't matter what they think or want, right? I feel like that's what we're going to end up seeing for Zaps. Yeah. It's unsustainable for them to want to take 30% forever of that stuff, right?
Yeah, my goal with Zaps is like we just need to put it in everything, like and just make it such a common operation in the Nostr ecosystem. And once the Nostr ecosystem is so large, it'll be like banning Zaps will be like banning the hyperlink in the browser. Like that's, and then at some point it's going to be silly for them to keep maintaining that policy.
I agree. It should be obvious that iOS is just not as much fun as, let's say, Android or PWAs because Zaps are either not there or they're inferior or they're subject to 30% tax or things like that. But having said that, I think we should try and do our best to somehow get the Zaps back into the App Store. Even like I think it's more important for them to be there, even in a form where we bend the knee, so to speak, and pay the 30% tax. I think that's a better outcome than not having them in the App Store at all, because Zaps are so integral to the overall experience and enable so many other use cases.
I mean, we see this with Twitter subscription, right? I mean, Apple, said, Elon, we want 30% of this. So Elon said, you know what, if you buy it on the internet, it's cheaper. And
they somehow let him get away with it, but they didn't let anyone else get away, including Amazon.
But eventually it becomes, like if you repass the cost to the user and you make it clear, like this is the Apple tax, and you call it Apple tax on the receipt, right? Users themselves are going to sort of like start complaining to Apple.
So they actually don't allow you to do that. So I think
of course they don't.
No, Facebook actually tried it. Like, and so their users were, if you tried to buy something on the marketplace, or I forget the exact what happened, but they actually would show like, oh, Apple's taking a cut, and this is what it actually is. They actually got removed from the App Store when they did that because they don't want users coming after them and being unhappy. So.
Yeah, but like people are going to notice, right, that on Damas Android, it's cheaper to buy that Zap that it is on iOS, right? Like
that's what ultimately does it, I think.
Yeah, and especially if it's the same brand, right? That's where things get obvious.
When I had the call with the Apple people about this whole thing, what I thought was really interesting was you were allowed to buy things with Zaps, physical things with Zaps. So this started to get me thinking. I was like, what if there's a loophole here where can you buy someone a coffee? Like, what if I can buy someone's lunch? That's a physical thing that you're zapping. So what if we have a button on post that's like buy me a coffee or buy a lunch? Like, I started thinking about this. Like, is this a potential way to get Zaps back in? I don't know, but that was an idea that I was thinking about.
Well, I mean, let's go like in this direction. Like, let's say things get worse, right? And like the Pixel store also doesn't want it anymore, and like, eventually, we go back to, maybe there's a different nip now. It's just like Lightning again. You know what I mean? Like, it's not Lightning called Zaps. It's just, something else, because people are not going to stop sending Bitcoin to each other. You can post a Bitcoin address and get paid, right? Bitcoin is no permission receiving.
Yeah, I mean, this is the huge, like, these are the gatekeepers, the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. That's kind of the biggest risk right now, because like so many people use those devices, like, and it's much more fun to use Nostr on your phone. So I think that's kind of the biggest threat right now for Nostr, and we need to. Maybe we need new app stores. We need more ways to get like sideload. Obviously, they said they're doing that with Apple. I don't know if that's even a thing. I haven't read anything about it, but yeah, we need different ways to like get things on our phones. It's not controlled by these.
Economically, it gets weird, right? Because see, like, we're not selling some token, right? Like, Bitcoin is a traded asset, right? Like, that has a price. So like, if you give the app $10 to buy Zaps and you're only getting $7 in Zaps to give away, like, people get crunchy even if you're not showing the Apple tax on it, right? Because the clients are not going to take that loss, right? It's at 30%. It's like it becomes uneconomical for you to have those, right? And we're going to definitely see more on ramps for sets for zapping in the platform too. Like, there's Strike, there's all this, a block with the Cash App. These apps are going to start getting integrated, and the source of Bitcoin for Zaps may not be the one that we have now that Apple is after. How are we doing time? Oh, wow.
What are we going to talk about?
Yeah, let's do some Q&A. Get a mic around and really get some deep questions here. I see hands there.
Hi, it's Lottie again. So first of all, it's really cool just to be sitting in front of all of you guys, because you build things that are really essential to everything we're working on. I'm a huge Damas fan. I use it every day, so thank you. I think one of the things I would like to know is, in what ways, I know you had said you don't necessarily need any more feedback because you guys already know all the things that are broken.
No, keep the feedback coming. I didn't mean don't give us feedback. Just know that we probably know about it, and maybe are going to need some time to get to it. But definitely keep the feedback
People
coming.
complaining is like the main reason why I know certain things are broken. So I love it when people complain at me.
Absolutely.
But sometimes it's like, yeah, when everyone's saying it, I'm like, yeah, I know it's broken.
Remember, the best form of complaint is a pull request.
Okay, that comes to my question. It's like, what is the most constructive way, not just to give you all feedback, but also make sure that the community is aware of it too, right? Because again, if it's like 70 people adding you that this thing is wrong, that's probably not helpful.
The most useful thing that you can do as a user if you want to help fix the issues that you're seeing is just provide a way to reproduce it. Because a lot of the time, people would say, "Oh, this is broken." I'm like, "Well, what are the steps you went through to get to that state?" And I think that once we have that flow, then we can easily fix the problem. So I think if you want to help client developers, just provide ways that you can reproduce the issue. So
I co-sign that. Short of providing the code that say the actual fix, yeah.
Thanks. Hi, Will. You touched on kind of over here.
hello.
Social media and how it's been negative for our generations. But you also talked about earlier, you put out a note saying 99% of Damus users leave because it's not sticky, doesn't have the algorithm, right?
Yeah.
So my concern is, how do we prevent these clients from becoming Twitter again? Because the algorithms work because it keeps people engaged. And so if we create the most efficient algorithm is probably going to be something like that. Like, how do we prevent that from happening again?
Yeah, it's really interesting because we ran through this with Jerome about, like, you know, our actual retention in the app, and we're going through it. And we realized it's like Damus is not even going to be successful if we don't, in some sense, make it more sticky and add more engagement features. But then it's like, yeah, what you said, we're going down that route of what if we go overboard, right? So maybe there's a balance where we can, you know, make it engagement make it engaging, but in a healthy way, not in a way that's like driving people insane and making bad effects on society. So I'm really looking forward to exploring what that is, because I want to build apps that like make people happy and make people have fun and not be overly addicted, which is weird. Like, yeah, it'd be great if I could, like, yeah, get everyone on, you know, make Damus like crack and get everyone addicted and everyone's using it. That's like, but is that really what we're trying to achieve here? We're trying to do something different. We don't want to just repeat the old system. So I think there's definitely a balance that I'm looking forward to exploring what that is.
I think you used an interesting word. You said prevent, and the key here is you can't. People will do what they want to do, and, you know, hopefully Twitter is going to see the value on Nostr, right? And they're going to run their own version of it. So you can't really prevent. It's more like, how do you compete? How do you have such an immersive, interesting, sticky experience that maybe is like healthier, right? But you still can compete against, like a war porn that people are sort of like super glued now on.
I think if the question is how do we prevent, from Nostr from becoming Twitter, I think the answer is we just let nature take its course, and it's going to happen organically because there are so many of us. When I say so many of us, so many already, only a few months in, there are so many different client apps making their own decisions and making different trade-offs. And we'll get to see what happens when it all plays out, and we kind of learn from each other.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's because we're definitely going to see some that are going to be like super addictive, like really addictive algorithms, and we're going to have maybe some that are more chill and care about your like well-being. But that's the beautiful thing about Nostr is we're going to have all of these different things that you can choose from, and depending on your personality, you'll choose the one that fits best for you.
I don't know if that's your quote or if you stole it from someone, MVK, but I love it. You said, everything is allowed, so everything will be tried. So that's
I don't know where I got that from. But this has another layer, right? Like the data is still there, right? Like you can still, like, say for example, you are more interested in having a healthier relationship with your social media, right? Like you can still interact with the person who really wants that intense, horrible, sort of, unhealthy relationship with it, right? You still exist in the same network. So
that's
you actually look completely off. Like, can you imagine, like, the guy is super angry, angry tweeting in replies about some war stuff, right? And then, you are watching, like, his replies on the super calm interface where, like, where is this guy coming from? Like, there is nobody validating his existence on this in this other sort of way of displaying it, maybe. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Great. Do we have more questions?
Hey guys, stage right over here. Miljan, you were talking about how there's 3 options for basically pulling in algorithms that have to run on a server. You either do it yourself, trust someone to do it, or you don't do it at all. And then, of course, there's the in-memory kind of like client-side version, but we'll discount that. I think data vending machines are a really promising approach to this because in any of those 3 options, or I guess 2 options, you have to address the service that is providing the functionality. And so you're coupling your client to that thing. Even if you make it swappable or user configurable or something like that, it's still a centralizing thing. And, more importantly, the algorithm is not fungible. It's not something that can be swapped out transparently. Do you guys have opinions about data vending machines? Is that something that you've looked into? That seems like there's already a kind for recommending content on the data vending machines.
Can you guys first explain what a DVM is so people get it?
Pablo agrees with me.
Yes.
Is that Huddlebot, by the way? I
Pablo,
can't see you,
shouldn't
but
you be on a talk somewhere?
Right over here.
It's in 5 minutes, so
Okay.
I'm good.
So
Go to his talk.
I think I completely agree with everything you just said. I can't see who that was, but I co-sign. Oh, over there. Okay. Yes, these are centralizing forces, and that's why I agree that the algos should be swappable. And so if we use Primal as an example, we'll make sure that our algos are available in other clients, and that we also are able to consume other algos from other services within our clients. Probably DVMs are the correct way to implement this, but we'll still, go deeper and kind of figure this out.
I'm a bit of a DVM skeptic. What my general philosophy is, and this is what I actually just wait and let Viter implement everything, and then see if it is good an idea or not. And it's actually a great way to just avoid doing stuff that is bad ideas. But DVMs could be a great idea. I'm just I'm gonna sit and see how it plays out before I do anything with them. Yeah, I mean, I'm more focused on Nostr. I feel like Nostr, specifically for the recommendation or the pluggable algo thing, I'm more interested in that. But they are competing ideas in that space. So
How far are you on that?
It's ready to go. I just need to find time to plug it in. So yeah, once I go back.
Can I download now? 2 weeks?
Yeah, I'm not gonna promise anything. But yeah, I think it's an interesting approach. That I just want to see it play out a bit more. So.
The way we implement it is almost secondary to the idea that this needs to be done and standardized, right?
Any more questions? Hands up. There's a couple there. Make it difficult for these guys. Come on.
I'm here.
Yeah.
I was wondering what your opinion is about how likes cost a lot of, people want attention online, and how Zaps are going to cause people to be greedy, and they just want money, and everything is going to be around getting sats, which is cool, but it can also have negative.
E-bagging used to be the term back in the early internet days. Is people will have behaviors based on just trying to either ask for money or just do things for the Zaps.
Yeah, is that something that we have to worry about or really be concerned or address?
It's really interesting because I ran into this issue when I implemented Only Zaps for the first time. So Only Zaps was a feature in Damus where it removed the like button on your posts if you turned it on, and people were really upset about it because they're like, oh, so I can't just like anything anymore. I'm just throwing change at you, and that's the only thing that's important to you. So it's there definitely is a weird social thing when you turn off likes on someone's post. And it's I only want sats. So yeah, I definitely agree that that is a challenge, but I don't know how to solve it.
How do you guys feel about one sat means F you? Was it 2 sats means I can't remember now.
One sat
F you twice.
Weird. I feel like one sat's
I hate you twice.
One sat is flinging pennies at people.
That's right. It's it's me.
Well, luckily I don't have MSAT values because that would be more rude, but it's technically supported.
Did we answer your question?
Yes, I was mainly thinking about, for example, young children, 6 years old. They're going to be using.
They need
Nostr.
a parent. It's parents should be the ones sort of dictating that. It's the lack of parenting that normally causes those problems, not the technology itself. I mean, at least in my view, there is only so much you can do. If you have kids, what they look at a tablet, the mouth just goes like this. Their brains cannot deal with it. It's just too sticky. So you need a human, their prescribed human to sort of direct them in a way that's healthier. At least in my view, you can't outsource that to an algo, I think.
Not yet.
Next question.
All right. I'm going to give this to Mr. MVK. So you said this idea of that the internet is forever and maybe that Nostr notes are forever. And honestly, I just don't fully understand that or what the mechanisms or incentives are of this data continuing to persist at scale.
Yeah, so data persistence is often even if you don't think about it in terms of in terms of design. It's just that like design to do that because you want the data to persist. It's more because we need the data to persist so that we can serve the data to users, right? So we have all these redundancies, and these redundancies end up never forgetting the data, right? You're going to have like layers of backup that are maybe deeper backups, and the data is always going to exist. Like it's nearly impossible to erase it.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people think that deletion. I mean, we have a deletion spec. It's like, I think it's NIP5 or something. And so the idea is that when you want to delete something, you send a note to the relay, and then the relay should remove the note.
By choice.
Yeah, they don't have to, but they should. And the only issue now is that if any of the relays that didn't get that delete note, now you still have one relay that has it. So now you have to pull down delete notes for every note that you pull, and so it's actually a really tricky thing. It's going to get even harder in DOMIS now because DOMIS actually saves all the notes it sees. So now I have to like pull down all the delete notes and make sure that it's deleted. But in reality, it's like every DOMIS phone is going to have the note, and you can't delete the note from everyone's phone.
I think the directional problem here is that like deleting in computer science is a problem when you have too much aggregated data. It costs more to delete than to store. So I think we're going to essentially disincentivize by design people to actually delete the stuff, even though it's part of the spec. What you might see is filters based on this deletion, right? So you hide at the client side maybe like the stuff that is flagged as deleted.
Yeah, you pretty much need to do that. The clients need to download delete notes and hide them if it's deleted.
It's an owner system.
It's actually easier to edit notes, I think. So maybe we'll see more note editing in the future. So you just like, you don't not only pull the note, but you pull down potential edits on that note. I don't think anyone's doing that
My
yet.
mind was blown the first time I saw that in action with long posts on abla.news. I was like, wait, what?
So this is actually a huge flaw, I think, in the long form notes. So we have this thing called a replaceable note.
Yeah.
And so, you can edit by replacing the note, but then you actually lose edit history because you're actually deleting the old notes. So I want to, me and Semisol have been talking about adding like,
Diff?
no, like instead of like replaceable notes, we just have a version history on notes. Okay. So yeah, they are replaced, but you keep the old version, and there's a way to fetch old versions.
So you're just chaining.
So it's a much better way, because we don't want to add deletion as like a core protocol mechanism because it just causes way too many issues. We see that with the contact list. Mm-hmm. Like, we get the weird sync issues with your contact list, and it's because it's like there's information destruction happening. Yeah. So, yeah.
Any?
Not much to add there. I just agree that contact lists are weird.
Did that sort of get your question answered? Not really. No, that's yeah. Is there any way we can sort of like rehash that in a way that would answer? Okay. Alex, do we have time for more? Yeah. One more question.
Hi. Hi. So going back to one of the previous questions, how much of the immersion and user experience do you think has to do with the presence of celebrities or experts that have things of interest to say that the algorithm can then uncover for the users?
I mean, it's very important. That's probably going to be one of the deciding factors whether Nostr takes off or not. I mean, at least to a point where it's like mainstream adoption. Is if sometimes we like to harp on influencers and all these types of people, but they bring in lots of people because most people are lurkers. Most people just want to consume interesting content from people making content. So if we're gonna win, we need to actually get more content creators on the network. So we got to find ways. We got to find ways to incentivize content creators. So that's why we said, like, right when Carlin Walker joined, like, they're like Bitcoin influencers in some sense. I'm like, everyone should be zapping them. Like, we need more people like that.
I mean, like, Twitter at its best, right? Like, if we ignore its other problems, it's like it really is remarkable, right? That you have like some of the smartest people and sort of more interesting people, more thoughtful people sort of hashing it out in public. I mean, that's really the public square right there, right? So, people want to hear from people who maybe, like are like they're distinguished in their fields, and, that be, just somebody who is very good at shuffle dancing. All the way to somebody who is a PhD in physics, right?
The problem is a lot of those people don't really care about like censorship resistance and the reasons why we built these clients. So we basically just need to get a good UX to compete with Twitter at that point. Right?
I mean, people don't care about censorship until they get rugged, right? I mean, So and we're starting to see like that does seem to be lurkers, like famous people who are lurkers on Nostr, and then there is sort of like people mirroring some of their posts, right? I think Sailor is he posting his Bitcoin buys on Twitter on Nostr because he's on Nostr too.
Yeah, he just posts images.
Just the pictures. Yeah.
Just the pictures. We need more than pictures, right? So, okay, guys. I mean, this was, I think, like super useful conversation. I think we covered a lot. So
that's fun.
Give it up for MBK, Will, and Miljan.
Thank you, guys.